Welcome back to the floor of IAE 2952. We are doing our floor tours. These are tours where I go around with these wonderful folks. Say hi to the folks at home here with waves and whatever emotes you want to do. Where I take these folks on a tour of the floor here at IAE to talk about the ships, the ship manufacturers, a little bit about the history, a little bit about what they are, to give you kind of a context for what's available here on the floor for everyone. So if you are enjoying this, make sure that you are hitting that subscribe button, hit the like the video, and of course, the little bell icon to know exactly when these come out. And we'd love to see you come down here and join these wonderful folks every day of the IAE from 3 p.m. Eastern onwards. So come on and join us. With that being said, let's talk about the small manufacturers, I believe it is Argo, Consolidated Outland, Greycat, and Kruger Intergalactic here on the floor today. So, a little background for y'all. We've got, let's start with Argo. So Argo is actually one of the older companies in the verse. It is only beat out by RSI for its age. That's how old it is. It was first founded in, I believe, 2258. I'm going to double check with my notes. 2243. 2243, founded before the UNE was even formed, and was originally founded as a train company. That's right, trains. They worked on maglev trains, helping to build the founder, who was named Alana Redmond. She worked on as an engineer on the train, just like her mother did before her. But during a stop-off, because the maglev system that she worked on, called the Trans-Am, the Trans-American, was ancient by the time she started working on it. It was falling apart, and most people were going to space travel, because space travel was cheap and affordable by that time. But on a stop, when they were trying to do some maintenance on the track, she kind of glanced over and saw a piece of scrap metal that had fallen off, that had been welded to the track itself, and noticed that it looked fairly similar to any of the patches that normally would happen. So she had an idea to build a device that would lay down scrap metal over, scan the tracks ahead, lay down scrap metal when the train would go over it, and let the train's magnetic coils crush the metal into its into the weld to kind of fix it on the go. And this was so well that she basically became the #1 train, supplier or kind of train accessory thing overnight. Eventually, she used that money to invest in buying a car making company from Japan that just made maglev cars. And over time, Argo became the biggest manufacturer in the verse. Gentlemen? All right. For trains, the biggest on Earth. And from there, they built the first train on Mars. And from there, they've continued forward to build more and more stuff. They began to specialize in infrastructure. Now, the one thing that was, no matter how good they got at making, the one thing that slowed them down was the process of taking the freight from the trains and putting them on ships, and taking them from the ships and putting it on trains. And it wasn't the train's fault, it was the ships. So they bought a struggling shuttle company and built what they called the orbital utility craft. The orbital utility craft was named. The orbital utility craft, which is the predecessor to the modern MPUV. It was so popular, people were trying to do their best to extend the lifespan of them once they stopped selling them, because the whole purpose of it was to a ship that would effectively take train cars, pick them up and carry them to orbit, and then put them onto ships at space stations. So but it was getting old. It wasn't working properly. A lot of they had to continue to change out the locks, the docking mechanisms. So what Argo did was create their own spacecraft to future-proof it, called the MPUV. And since then, they've built nothing. It's pivoted away from trains, though I think they still do make trains, and built ships that are designed to improve the infrastructure. So with that, let's go look at the oldest and I think the best ship in the Argo lineup, the Multi-Purpose Utility Vehicle, or the MPUV. Come with me.
The king.
It is the king of the last year's Ship Showdown?
The King in Orange.
The King in Orange. So, this is the MPUV. The MPUV, Multi-Purpose Utility Vehicle, is designed as a Swiss Army knife of ships. Built sometime before 2665, this ship is designed to be we call this the MPUV cargo, but in reality, this is just an MPUV with a cargo module. There's a lock system. If you look at the very top here, it's hard to tell if you look through here, kind of in the back. You can kind of see like a little circular dock. These are designed to swap out these middle modules for whatever you want instead. They have modules for personnel. They have modules for repair, for mining, for search and rescue, what have you. So these, because they're cheap and easy to make, they're basically just a spaceship with, framed with engines and hydrogen tanks, because it doesn't actually have a quantum drive. It's fairly simple design. These are everywhere as a result. You see them all over the verse. The UAE Navy has made a standard for every single capital ship to have at least one of these in their on their capital ships. Every station has one, if not a fleet of these, to help pull cargo off of larger freights that they may not have the ability to dock and transfer cargo. And this is likely the first ship you will ever fly if you're starting to learn. If you go to, like, say, a class, the class will likely have, or the company that you're taking the class from will likely have a fleet of Argo MPUVs that you use to train to learn how to fly on, because they're just so simple. And if you break them, they're pretty easy to fix or replace because they're so cheap. So that's the MPUV. From the MPUV, let's go on and talk about the Mole. So the Mole is it's a more recent one. 2948 was when it was built. It was first showed off at IAE 2948. And this is a ship to take advantage of the... Ooh, a little roughhouse there. This was a ship to take advantage of the kind of independent mining boom that was going on at the end of the 2940s. It is designed as a multi-person miner in a kind of unique way. It uses upgraded mining heads compared to the Prospector and has 3 separate mining kind of beams. But if you look over here in the back, where you can see some of these mining beams, where is this? Is it back here? Yeah, here, back here. If you look at it here at the sides, look at these canopies here. If you look closely, you can notice that there is no glass there. It is entirely exposed to the vacuum of space. Now, the purpose of that is to make it easier to maneuver and easier to fix. But you're basically hanging out in a spacesuit with a big laser to try to blow up a rock, which could explode and send shrapnel all over you. So it's a little dangerous and a little bit more expensive because you're going to have to pay for suits and safety equipment and such like that. But it makes it the overall maintenance of the ship easier. It holds more cargo than the Prospector as well. It holds more of these mineral bags, and it is a little bit slightly more hardened compared to the Prospector, so it survives a little bit better. And it has plenty of living space for the entire crew. From that, let's move over to the Raft. So the Raft is, to give you some background, the 30th century is not very kind to most infrastructure. The infrastructure of the 30th century kind of sucks outside of the main systems, core systems like Stanton. So most places are lucky to even have a pad that can support a ship heavier than an Aurora, let alone a full-fledged like loading bay, docking cranes and such, or loading cranes and such. So Argo built the Raft as a way for, it's kind of like a light medium freighter designed to carry loads to and from market in the most remote of places. The idea being, if there is no crane to unload or load your cargo at where you're going, bring the crane with you. So that's what this is. This is designed to be kind of a mobile crane and delivery ship or cargo ship. And because if you have your own cranes for loading and unloading, you save time, which can then save you money if you have to move on. So this ship is designed to be part crane, part trader. With that, let's head on over to see what CNOU, the new the new up-and-coming ship manufacturer has for us on the floor of IAE. All right, here we are at the CNOU, the Consolidated Outland floor. Let's stop here and I'll talk to you a little bit about the Consolidated Outland in general. So Consolidated Outland was founded, we don't know exactly when, but likely in the 30th century, by the quote-unquote rebel trillionaire Silas Kerner. Now, Silas Kerner is a member of the Kerner family who is, she was born a billionaire as it was, and his whole family were some of the first families on the planet of Rytif, with the settlement of Stolfer. They were one of the founding families of Bremen. As such, they made a killing during the First Tavaran War when Bremen became the breadbasket of the UAE. They just had all of the money because they owned all the land. So since then, at the precocious age of 16, Silas managed to make a good investment on a communications company that took off, and then made it again when he invested in Earth Seafood, which was a craze that kicked off shortly afterwards. So he went from being a humble billionaire to a trillionaire by the time he was 18. So he had a lot of money, a lot of time, so he decided to invest into his passion because he always loved spaceships, all types of spaceships. He, in fact, owns at least one original Zeus model, not a recreation, but an original Zeus model that he owns in his own personal garage. So he's a big space aficionado. However, he also hates all modern space design, absolutely hates it. So when he started to found his own company, Consolidated Outland, set in Bremen, his goal was to unseat RSI and become the new great leader of innovation for space travel and technology. As a result, when he founded Consolidated Outland, he didn't really have a lot of knowledge of what he was doing. So he hired a bunch of people to help him make what are called third-party conversion kits. If you've seen the Idris K, that is a third-party conversion kit. If you have in fact, the most famous conversion kit is actually made by Consolidated Outland. Back in 2943, there was a sale of conversion kits from the F7C to the F7A, the military version of the Hornet. That conversion kit is made by Consolidated Outland. That was the kit that got them the know-how and the money to invest in developing their first spaceship, which was the Mustang. Since then, they've been on the rise, getting more and more ambitious, and are still kind of in the up-and-comers of the verse. So from that, let's go on over to the very first ship they ever made, the Mustang. Yes, and the Privateer is also another great example of a conversion kit. All right, here we go. Meet the Mustang Alpha. So the Mustang Alpha is the basic package that you get when you play Star Citizen. If you just get the Mustang, this is what you get. It is a rugged ship for what it does. It's fairly weak compared to the Aurora, but it has one more SCU of cargo and has a little bit better weapons loadout. I think the Aurora can have almost the same, but this one starts off with size 2 weapons in comparison. The one thing it doesn't have is a bed, which the Aurora does. So this is a ship that is designed to focus mostly on short range and system-wide travel and experience. But it's the starter basic version. This was the one that Silas Kerner hoped to unseat the Aurora as the primary starter ship for people in the verse. Over here is the Delta. So they made several variants other than the Alpha. This is a specific militia variant designed to function with those on the frontier. Obviously designed with people like the Bremen Defense Force in mind, his hometown defense force as it was. This ship is a lightweight ship, which has an additional attachment point to Hurston Dynamics rocket pods, which you can use as dumbfire. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same, except for you see these little patterns on here. This is a specific stealth and painting armor that is designed by Consolidated Outland. I forgot the name of it or what it's called, but it's designed specifically to kind of lower your signature while also being a little bit more protective. So it's kind of an up-armored, up-gunned version of the Mustang. Now from here, let's go talk about the Beta, the exploration variant.
The Bangstang.
The Bangstang, though I personally prefer the original beta, not the current prison Mustang that it is now. So this is the beta. The beta is the exploration variant. It has a slightly larger fuel capacity compared to the other variants, and it has a bed. If you look back there, there's a little door. You can get in and go all the way back there. There is a small habitation, though it is very Spartan in its appearance. But that's its main purpose. It is designed for you to go a little bit further out in the black as you need to if you really want to experience space travel. Let's see if we can get in the back. No, it doesn't work unless you do that. But that is the beta. And the last variant is the Gamma. So the Gamma was built as a racing variant. It actually has an additional engine. Where is that additional engine? Right here at the top. Right here. That is an engine. So it has an additional engine and an additional, I want to say scoop, the ram scoop. So it can be a little bit faster than its cousins. It is a little bit faster and a little bit more. It has a little bit better acceleration than the other Mustangs out there. That's its main difference. Now, from the Mustangs series, let's go to the Nomad series. So the Nomad is an interesting thing. It's very unique. It was built with the idea of these hover skids in mind. Rather than having traditional landing gear, they decided to go for more hover tech. Now, this has a couple of different advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is you don't need really clean ground to land this thing on because the hover will take care of most of those issues. But at the same time, it's a fairly difficult ship to, like, if the things malfunction or it gets a little too high, if there's a bug in game, then it's much more difficult to get into. The other kind of disadvantage this has is that instead of having a closed cockpit, closed cargo bay, it has an open cargo bay. It's kind of a flatbed truck. Now, this flatbed truck was designed to be able to carry a small vehicle or about 24 SCU of cargo. And if you look above here, you can see little nozzles in the little top wing there. That is actually a tractor beam up there. That's designed as a tractor beam to be able to load and unload cargo. It also has a little small habitation inside, but this is kind of like a step between your starter ships, your first ship in the verse, and the more profession starter ships like the Hull B or the Freelancer. A little bit in between, so if you have a little bit of extra cash, you can get it, and it has that unique open back module. Now, with that all being said, let's go down and let's go over and talk about Kruger a little bit before we continue on. Follow me. So this is what's on offer from Kruger Intergalactic. Let's give you a little bit of a concept of what Kruger is. Now, Kruger is one of the newer companies, but it's also one of the smaller offerings for ships, but it's also one of the larger and more important ships or companies in the verse. Kruger Intergalactic started life as a parts manufacturer in the system of Magnus on Berea, the planet Berea, which is currently the headquarters of Drake Interplanetary. But Kruger started there as a parts manufacturer, which they did pretty well. They made everything from the firing pins of the P-8 up to the large capital ship components or pieces of capital ships that needed to be built. And when Magnus began to decline after the military left the system, Kruger tried to stick into it. They said they would never leave it. It was their hometown, but a major pirate raid on one of their shipments that delayed an important shipment to RSI, risked their contract with RSI, so they decided to move to the recently opened system of Castra. So there they opened up a factory in Castra, and from there they became they started continued on as normal. It was there that a kind of an infamous conversation took place. Some executives were having a board meeting, and one executive joked that Kruger makes all the parts of a gun except for the gun itself, which got them talking and discussing, and they decided to greenlit a project to make a gun in-house, entirely in-house. So, taking the parts and the know-how that they had, they built what we know today as the Tiger Strike. The Tiger Strike became the standard weapon for the Aegis of Avenger and got some popularity. As a result, when the Constellation series was being updated and they wanted to add a small snubcraft, Kruger, who had good relations with RSI, threw their hat into the ring and asked if they could enter a bid, which they did, and they won, which became the Merlin. So the Merlin and the Archimedes were first built by Kruger fairly recently in the 2940s, as to be kind of paired with the brand new variations, the brand new generations of constellations. The P-52 has a unique inbuilt Tiger Strike. It's kind of a miniaturized Tiger Strike on the front, and has some two size 1 weapons on the mounts on the side. Pretty basic, but any ship, any Connie with a cradle for these ships can support it, so you can swap these out pretty easily. Now, these are standard on all Connies except for the Taurus and the Phoenix. The Phoenix has this over here, the P-72 Archimedes, which removes the front gun for an extra intake, or an extra nozzle intake to turn this into a bit of a racer, and replaces the loss of that size 2 gun with 2 additional size 1 guns on the wings. This is my personal preference. If you're going to have a Connie and you want a good snubcraft, this is the best snubcraft for the Connie, because you don't have to reload the laser weapons rather than the stuck with the Gatling gun, and it's faster and more maneuverable. Yeah. So, and that's Kruger. Now let's head down and talk about another of the older companies in the verse, Greycat. All right. Welcome to Greycat. Now, Greycat is a interesting... it's Steve. It's Steve. Hey, Steve. The Greycat as a company has an interesting history because it was founded in 2337. So it's a little bit younger than the current... than Argo, but not by much. And it was founded by a man by the name of Otis Broussard on Mars as a mining company. Now, it did okay under Otis, but it really took off with his daughter, Pippa, took over. She wanted to take advantage of the newly formed UNE and the newly terraformed Croshaw system to open up a new factory in the Croshaw system. But she needed someone to help her kind of design new materials for it. Because A, she wanted to kind of get out of Seoul and get into like the new markets, but she also wanted to get away from her father, who was, even though no longer the CEO, was still the chairman of the board. So she found out one of her friends from college, a man by the name of what's his name, Ruben Pardue, had recently encountered a mining accident while working on a project, an ambitious project, and was looking for a job. He had lost an arm in an accident. He blamed himself for the whole thing, but he was a brilliant engineer and loved to do hard challenges. So Pippa took pity on him, offered him a job, and he began to go work for Greycat. Now, Greycat was the perfect company for him because of the mining accident. He wanted to try to improve mining safety overall. So his first couple of things that he made was the Ariel mining armor, which we still have today. Again, just modified versions of it, which sold pretty well. But what really broke the bank was his invention of the Pyro multi-tool, which is the standard multi-tool in the verse today. It was so successful that they literally could not keep up with demand. But Ruben Pardue's inventions began to basically push the company from then on. And only recently have they had to kind of develop new products. But they are one of the major mining manufacturers in the verse. Though they are expanding out a little bit more. So let's start with the oldest one here. The PTV. This is the personal transport vehicle. This is a mining buggy. I know it doesn't look like it, but that's because they modified it. The original mining buggy had a top. So this area here was closed off with an armored roof. And it was supposed to be small enough to be able to fit into most small mines and to allow for some protection if someone had to escape from a collapse, a cave-in. But it was so fun when they were building the actual models on the floor. Factory workers began to take completed models and take them for a test drive on the factory floors themselves. And people had so much fun with it, kind of driving up and down, that they realized they could turn this into more of a commercial vehicle as well. So they removed the heavy top to make it a little bit lighter, and they started to sell it to the civilian market as everything from frontier kind of vehicle to something you drive in the busy streets of a main system. It is probably still the most popular Greycat product outside of the Pyro multi-tool. After that, let's go over here and talk about the Rock. So the remote ore collector was built shortly after the PTV saw its initial implementation. And the idea was to kind of find a middle ground between the hand miner and the large ship miners, something that was more efficient, that didn't require a lot of fuel, but could still do well. And so the Rock was created to fit in most cargo bays of kind of medium to large ships, while also being more efficient than a large miner and more powerful than a small miner. It works well enough that it actually spawned the Rock DS, which is kind of a dual seat version to allow for a more precise operator to tackle things while driver is driving around. Now, the most recent offering, and one of two new vehicles which is going to be coming out into the verse, is the Greycat STV, or the Sport Transport Vehicle, or known as the STV, aka Steve. The Steve is designed for recreation. It is the first vehicle that they created outside of the PTV, though the PTV was originally a mining cart, effectively. It's the first mining or non-mining vehicle from the ground up to be built by Greycat, and its cousin, the Utility Transport Vehicle, or the UTV, will be released shortly in the near future. This was just released this year. From all of these different vehicles, let's go talk about the little medical there. Oh, he's alive. Okay, good. Let's go talk about the other ground vehicle that's on display, the hover quad.
Wouldn't be an IAE without casualty.
Yeah. So the Consolidated Outland's hover quad was built alongside the Nomad. It was designed to be kind of partnered with the Nomad. It uses the same technology developed for the hover skids of the Nomad to create kind of a open-topped racer snub craft. This can be used in space and on ground, and it has been very fun. It has a lot of utility of the Dragonfly, but it's a little bit faster, a little bit nimbler than the Dragonfly. So it's kind of a good middle ground between, say, something like a Nox or an X1 and the Dragonfly, while still being useful for off-roading. It's still a little bit faster and a little bit more sporty. Now, that's everything that is available here on the floor. Let's go over and look at what's going to be available in the near future. Come with me.
These NPCs are cowering in fear in front of the mighty Steve.
The mighty Steve. All right, here we go. This is the SRV. I don't remember the name. The Argo SRV. This is the space tow truck. This is kind of the ultimate evolution of the MPUV. This was designed to be more specialized, a little bit more expensive to maintain and operate than the MPUV, but has a lot more specialization when it comes to its giant tractor beam. It's effectively a cockpit with a massive tractor array. It's something that's big enough to even hold a medium ship in quantum. It can also carry ships, or any cargo and such, from ground to space with its large tractor array, which has a little more gimbal, so you can use it in different ways. So the SRV is currently in development. It will be released here shortly. It's actually in the process of being finished, and will kind of spell a very different, a brand new way of dealing with search and rescue and salvage in the near future. From there, let's go over and talk about the change of base building in the verse, the Pioneer. So the Pioneer is the second ship that Consolidated Outland ever built. It was inspired, honestly, by the factories of Bremen. So they wanted to try to improve, Silas Kerner and his team wanted to try to improve the ability for people to be in remote areas. They wanted to create something that could allow people to live on the frontier. But the problem is that most frontier outposts are built bespoke. They have some prefabs you can purchase, but you have to purchase them and then you have to assemble them yourselves on the frontier. So it requires a large cargo bay to be able to go to those areas. So it maybe require multiple trips. So you may be living out of a ship for a very long time if you want to live out in the frontier, or build a new outpost for any venture that you want to do, business, scientific, whatever. So the concept was, what if we bring the factory to the location? And that is what the Pioneer is. It is, like I said, inspired and designed very similarly to the factories of Bremen, where the Mustang is made. So you can think of this as a flying Mustang factory, but designed to build outposts. It is very anticipated. Not many ships have been built because, again, it's a very big ship, and Consolidated Outland is very small. They still have to have a difficult time keeping up with this. But that is it for here on the floor of IAE. Let's come on over here. Come on over. That is it what we have for today for the small manufacturers, here at IAE. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, remember, subscribe, like, ring the bell, and join us live 3 p.m. Eastern during IAE. I also want to hear your thoughts about these different ships in the comments below. Let me know. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.